Alright, I am back with another Destiny 2 video after a week off here. It was Thanksgiving. I had my entire family in town, so not exactly a ton of time to record or do anything past writing. Skipped a lot of writing too. But I wanted to circle back and do at least a review in progress of Revenant, the current episode where we are over 2/3 of the way done now. We have Act 3 coming up in, I don't remember how many more weeks, a lot. And then I think we're getting some sort of exotic quest to some extent. I'm not sure what the depth of it will be, if it will be kind of an elaborate one or if it will be on the smaller side, but this is where we're going to get that shotgun that we have been promised here that looks kind of cool. At least looks like a Borderlands weapon with a scatter shot and everything. I want to talk a little bit about the good and bad of Revenants, in which I do think there is both. Does the bad outweigh the good? Yeah. Overall, I'll just start with the top line. I like this season better than Echoes. I think it is overall kind of baseline better across the board, but certainly does have its own issues. The good. I like continued investment in Onslaught. I think that is a very good mode that they introduced. I think there is a reason that the anniversary content was well received. It may not be like the perfect Horde mode that everyone has wanted, but it's pretty close, and I really do like to see kind of an expansion on that. New maps, new enemies, new loot in this case with seasonal loot, and new boss encounters, new in-between segments, all that stuff. I think it is good to head back to Onslaught and expand modes like that. This is obviously setting up for Frontiers, where they're going to be rotating in and out specific activities, and clearly Onslaught is going to be one of them. I think they already said that outright. One thing I hope, and one thing I sort of wish we were doing now, is that Onslaught modes were combined into one thing. So rather than one of 3 maps and 2 enemy races, we get the whole bundle. They would have to change how looting works a little bit, but I would rather have that kind of a rotation as opposed to just kind of the same 3 over and over again, which has been sort of an issue here. Also, they have not really learned from criticism about how 10 waves is too short and pointless, and 50 waves is annoying. It's just too long, like 70 minutes for an activity that you cannot essentially reduce the time in any meaningful way because of timers. The only thing you can kind of do faster a little bit are the in-between segments or like burning a boss. Everything else, you're waiting for timers to build things. There are a lot of ways time can be reduced here. I don't really believe in dedicated time periods to build things. I feel like that should sort of be an ability that you have whenever you get the materials. And the in-between segments, I get why they exist. I just don't think they're terribly compelling. I think they could be either cut or reduced, especially in original Onslaught, like that one where you just run the spark or whatever is not very good. This one I think is a little better, although tracking Revenant Baron floaty things is bad. And I think it should be cut probably down to at least 40 waves, not because the last 10 waves are particularly hard. I think difficulty should ramp up faster, start at kind of how it is at wave 20 or 30 and go from there. So those are the changes I would kind of make, and I was a little bummed they didn't really make any changes in terms of format between the original and this. That said, again, I do really like Onslaught. I do like them introducing new aspects to it. I really like Tomb of Elders. I think this is a really solid activity that in many ways I like better than the Coil in terms of how it plays, its objectives, the very limited downtime that is not trap rooms, and it's just sort of running with a little mini objective killing enemies. I did not like the trap room part of Coil. And I think this is a really neat way to bring Prison of Elders back. I know it's not as hard as some people want, which I get, but it's also sort of a seasonal activity, and I don't think it's meant to be like this ultra hard thing necessarily. And, if you're matching with randoms, you can lose, certainly. It is not impossible. And the biggest problem is a lack of loot distribution, but I'll get into that later. Again, this seems like something that is being built up for Frontiers, and that this will be... We already know the Coil is coming back to be a rotator in there, so I assume Tomb of Elders will be as well. They seem to be designing a lot of these activities for that sort of thing, and this feels like another one. I think they did a good job with it. I know there's some people that aren't fans, but it is something that I think I've been enjoying this season. Loot, I think loot is pretty good. I said before that there weren't that many things I felt like I was chasing, but in the end, I think I've got most everything I want. I do like the kind of new arc things they did with my, what is it? Jolting feedback is kind of the new thing on these arc weapons. Eddy current with jolting feedback on the pulse, and then I have jolting current with, what is it? Oh, attrition orbs, because that actually kind of synergizes pretty well on the submachine gun. So I've liked that kind of stuff. And even in Iron Banner, we have the new stasis chill clip sidearm, rocket sidearm, that I think is a good chase. I got all the armor. I liked getting the new armor sets. Again, there are RNG problems, which I'm getting into in the bad section, but I have liked the loot overall. Just getting the loot has been a pain in the ass in many ways. Oh, and bringing back like Chroma Rush and Crit Skipper and things like that. Those are splicer weapons are awesome, so I'm glad to see those come back. The Sandbox, I'm not talking about like all the individual weapon tweaks and whatever, but I think what they significantly changed is the ability to make roaming supers more viable, at least in PvE. These changes to both damage, but especially how often you can get them, really makes it feel like you don't always have to just sort of run one-off supers for damage, and especially in these enemy-heavy activities, being able to kind of clear house a significant amount of time has been good. It's kind of crazy to have like Raiden Flux Hunter be like a thing you can use in a lot of activities for clearing, and it's been nice to go back to a lot of those roaming supers. It is a bummer that things like the Titan shield throwy thingamajig is not going to be at this level of power. They're going to nerf it because the melee attacks are too strong, but it's been fun to use, and at least they're giving that a little bit of time. I think this has been a positive change in that I really enjoyed trying out a lot of new builds. The artifact building into Arc I think is good. Stasis is good too. The stuff they did with all the stasis mods and stasis buffs, that is good. There's some good new stasis weapons. I've mostly just flipped to Arc now because I find that a little more compelling. I like doing a blind base build on Warlock and Hunter. There's some fun stuff in there, and this is one of the more fun kind of sandboxes I feel like I've been playing around in. It reminds me of like back when Arc 3.0 was introduced, and that was really fun. It's kind of similar here. The bad. We'll just start with the obvious. RNG has been very poor this season. Everyone is using this as an excuse that this is why, I can't believe you killed crafting for this. Doesn't this feel awful? Blah, blah, blah. I've talked about this before, but the main reason this feels terrible is because their loot distribution has been awful this season. I talked about the Coil versus Tomb of Elders. The Coil and Onslaught. So on the old Onslaught and the Coil like showered you with loot in a way that this does not. The Coil had like the ability to pick between armor and weapons, and there were like multiple chests every time. There's a chest in Tomb of Elders that doesn't do anything. It gives you glimmer or something. It gives you like 3,000 glimmer. And then at the very end, you're not really getting as much. You're getting all these materials. You're not getting enough weapons. Onslaught has been, it's not even close. Like you get some weapons in end of Onslaught chest, but there's no material that you're getting to like dump into another chest the way you did with previous Onslaught. And I think there was not a ton of complaining that original Onslaught did not have crafting. It felt between the amount of loot you got and things like shinies and double perks and things, you could get what you wanted to some extent if you played enough. Here, it's way bad. You get way less loot. There are quote unquote shinies. I've gotten 2 of these goddamn things the entire time, and I have played dozens of hours of this season. This is linked to focusing being terrible with these awful potions. I just wrote a whole thing about this yesterday. Wildly over convoluted system with dozens of these potions in a way that this does not need to be like this at all. It's busy work for the sake of being busy work, and it feels terrible. There's an interesting thing in terms of like buffing your artifact abilities with a potion. However, they could have just given us 1 or 2 toggles on the artifact to use to give like a second feature of whatever skill you're using rather than this potion brewing time limited nonsense. And then of course, focusing potions for actual loot are terrible. It barely feels like they work. Half the time they don't drop stuff long enough. You can pop a potion and get one of the weapons you're looking for during an entire run of Onslaught, which is ludicrous like, in terms of the time invested there. Plus, all the potions are like, oh, you're going to get this weapon and weapons generally from the season. And then you end up getting like 5 weapons from the season and one of the weapons you want. Like, people have developed a conspiracy theory that if you pick a potion, you're getting a weapon from a different potion. I don't think that's true. I think it's just RNG being shitty and like this not giving you enough stuff to begin with. And that is true for world weapons. I like the ability to focus world weapons if it worked more of the time, which it does not. There's not enough loot. Focusing is bad. And that is the main reason why everybody wants crafting back. You could say it's not, but if you give people enough loot, if you give people enough options like multiple perks, this gets dramatically reduced. All this said, they are obviously going to bring back crafting for seasonal weapons next season. There has been way too much complaining that they're not doing it, so they're going to do it. I'm not going to go into that whole thing again, but if that's what you want, that's coming back. I will almost guarantee it. Clip this for when I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. Other bad things, the field work things are very dumb. These like go find one object at a point and kill 20 Vex in this zone, and then finds, this little table in the middle of nowhere and kill 15 enemies. And sometimes there will be voice lines. Sometimes they're broken and there aren't any. Very pointless stuff. And we're back to the whole like rows of boxes thing, which I don't even remember what half of those do. I think there's something that can give you extra potions. Oh, and by the way, the potion thing sucks because it's been broken for a lot of people on various characters. Since week 2, my Warlock just straight up cannot brew potions. I know I have a friend who only has one character and has not been able to brew a single potion, which means I don't think you can progress the story at all since launch. And like, I've talked to Bungie directly. I've talked to DMG. Like, I've talked to people that are directly working on this bug, and it has not been fixed. How for like 8 weeks into the season, like it has not been fixed, and it sucks. It's a very bad bug that maybe not a ton of people have, but if you have it, it's like really wrecking big parts of the season. Finally, the story. I don't think it's a very good story. I didn't think Echoes had a very good story either. This idea of this sort of self-contained tale, it doesn't really work very well. I didn't like the 3-week on, 3-week off storytelling. I like 2 hours on, 6 weeks off, even less. They jam like a couple lines of dialogue and like talking to people 6 feet away 10 times and then doing like one story mission into the first, 90 minutes, 2 hours of the week. And that's it. The story this time is what exactly Fickrell can turn Fallen into Scorn, which I think we've seen happen exactly once. Brought Skolas back, and there was a cool cutscene about Skolas story-wise. I don't think that matters at all. We just killed him again. Mithrax is struggling with Nezarek's curse, which is something we forgot he was afflicted with. How long ago was that? A year ago? I don't even remember. It's just sort of making him an asshole. His daughter Ido is trying to cure him with that's one of the reasons potions exist, and he's just sort of being angry and violent. And then we have Aramis, who is back for the trillionth time, doing nothing. We capture her, we put her in jail, we let her out. No real conflict there. Crow's like, haha, you rascal. I'm sure it'll be fine. We won't tell the Vanguard. He is the Vanguard. And she's going to help us do something with Fickrell. She knows where he is. I don't know. This has not been good. Tired of Aramis. I wish they would do something drastic, like Mithrax goes nuts and kills Aramis finally and is a bad guy. I'm so tired of redemption stories. I don't want another Aramis redemption arc. I just, we've done the whole like enemy race person is actually cool and helps us out. Like I'm over this. We need more kind of severe stories in a way that like they just seem scared to give us. Amanda Holiday highing when they actually try to do one of these doesn't work. These are not well planned, and I'm hoping the final episode here with all the Hive stuff and the Dreadnought and leading into Frontiers will be better, but I think we're 0 for 2 in terms of story stuff right now. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Again, we'll have the Dawning starts tomorrow. I don't know how much is going to be to say about the Dawning. New people to deliver cookies to, I guess. And I mean, they're just not really doing anything significant with events anymore. And the Dawning has never really had a dedicated event other than maybe Snowball Strikes. We'll see if that comes up. Weren't they supposed to redo Inverted Spire at some point? Is that like, is that in the rotation of the Strike playlist? So I haven't played it. I don't know what's going on with that. I think I heard you can play it from the director, but that was like advertised as like a big addition in this season, and it has not come up at all. And then after that, in however many weeks, we're going to get Act 3, the conclusion of the story. Maybe we'll kill Fickrel for the 5th time. Maybe Aramis will finally die. If we're lucky, we'll see. And then we will lead into Frontiers. And we have that exotic quest, which hopefully will be cool because exotic quests usually are, but we'll see. So yeah. So anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if my new lighting here is any better. I'm still having trouble with placement a bit because my desk is way too tiny for any real setup here, but I'm trying to make this a little less terrible. But thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.